classes in session, and students are immediately out the door. That's how they do it in the OC, a complex that looks straight out of Silicon Valley, but it sits on the woods southeast of Dallas. If you can play this clip so the audience can get an idea what this place looks like. Go for it.
At the intersection of Inspiration Boulevard and Innovation Way sits an experiment in education.
We think this is the future of education.
It is certainly something that has never been done before.
It's not like school, because when people think of school, they think like, oh, just a bunch of kids going in there to learn. You really have like more experiences here, so it doesn't really feel like learning when I'm here.
Forney ISD's newest campus is called Opportunity Central.
It's the first we found in the nation with any sort of concept like this or any kind of building like this as well.
Upstairs are classrooms. Downstairs is where students really learn.
I don't describe it as my high school. I would describe it as...
This is a high school.
Wow. Maybe a job. Like, I think you have responsibilities and you get to learn as you go, just as someone would in their own job.
Businesses are moving in on the first floor of this campus. Eddie Dean's is opening a barbecue restaurant. Mary Sue's Hot Chicken is coming. So is Southern Social Eatery. Down the corridor, a salon has signed a lease, and construction is almost complete on Martin's Automotive around Bath.
They'll run a business out of this.
Pine and Ivy is a home decor boutique and the first business to open its doors here.
One is named for each of the high schools.
Meg Wagner agreed to mentor 15 Forney high schoolers. In exchange, the district gave her a discount on her lease.
The fact that I will be able to work with and mentor students, it's a win-win for me personally, but I think it's an opportunity to give back to the community as well.
That's amazing.
Tom.
Well, first of all, there's some other facts in here. It cost $100 million. By the way, you had business leaders get involved with the school board to build this. And this place was built for $100 million, $100 million less than the budget that the ISD originally had for it. And let me tell you what these businesses are doing down there. They're giving kids not just the opportunity to work there and make a couple bucks. You know, people say, oh, you're just using the kids for labor. No, 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 no. The purpose of the kids working with these is understanding how to run a business, whether you are buying raw materials to make the candle or you're running the auto shop. It's about running a small business and what does it take to do that and getting the kids exposed to it. 1/3 of the total square footage is dedicated to those entrepreneurial experiences, and the other 2 floors is a regular high school with regular classes. And this is basically some sanity coming, and it's wonderful. And it's happening where? It's happening in Texas, where they're trying to reach out and saying, go upstream. You've heard me talk about upstream and downstream problems. You go downstream, oh, let's fix the problem by charging people $1 billion in taxes. And other people want to go upstream and say, well, maybe let's see if we go upstream and stop the problem from starting in the first place. And they're going into high school to say, when you graduate high school here, not only will you have your regular high school education, you are going to have the experience of having been able to work with a number of small businesses, talk to the business owners, see what it's like, and oh my goodness, maybe find another path in life for yourself that leads to success.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great, people. And sorry, Adam, I know you want to go, but especially with the AI stuff that we saw is going to be taking over, those girls are learning the trade. They're learning something else on top of school, which I think is fantastic.
Adam.
Well, I think we've covered this before, where basically college is a scam for many people. For certain people, it's great if you're going into the fields of STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, everything like that. But for many people, and we've had Mike Rowe on the podcast before, we've had people that talk about this before. For men, there's so many opportunities out there. It's a blue ocean out there for trade and for trade schools, and becoming an HVAC guy or an engineer or a carpenter or a plumber. These guys make 6 figures. It's dirty jobs. But at the end of the day, these jobs are going nowhere. AI is not replacing your jobs. For many women, whether it's hairdressing or certain skills that you learn at technical schools like this, artistry, makeup, we know the makeup industry is going nowhere. At the end of the day, college is not worth it. We see student loans skyrocketing. As they always say, degrees pay fees and skills pay the bills. Go learn some great skills that never fail you.
Tom, where's that story about the number of kids that are dropping out? Oh, there it is. So more students are dropping out of college. Check this out, page 11. More students are dropping out of college. Let's see this here. Here's why. CNBC story. 1 in 4 students at risk of not completing college. A significant portion of undergraduates, particularly those who are first-generation minority or low-income students, are contemplating dropping out due to financial constraints and other challenges, with roughly 26% seriously considering leaving college or facing dismissal. Money is a main concern. Rising college costs and student loan debt are major factors driving students to reconsider their education. About half of those at risk of dropping out citing difficulties meeting tuition, interesting, and related expenses such as textbooks and housing. And the last one is staying the course is crucial, seeking alternatives, funding options such as scholarships, and finding ways to manage expenses. Tom, thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, CNBC hid the ball on part of the story. I dug into it. Let's read there. Dropping out of college due to financial constraints and other challenges. You know what some of those other challenges were? 40% of students are studying things that when they walk out of school, they can't use that thing to go, I studied European art history. Really? So you know where the Renaissance art came from that's hanging in the museum? Yeah. Okay, what the hell does that do for you?
Yeah. 16th century French poetry.
You're going to win a game they played back in the 80s called Trivial Pursuit?
Look at this here, by the way. Look at this here. The average tuition and fees adjusted for inflation from 1970 till today. Look at the baby blue one.
Right.
That's the nonprofit. That's the private nonprofit 4-year skyrocketed from $10,000 now to $40,000.
And then the other side of it is they're getting gouged horribly on tuition to learn about this history. So there are some students here that are studying business or STEM that have legitimate family constraints in being able to pay for college. That's legitimate. But in the CNBC stories, PBD, they left out the 40% of students that say they are graduating with something, if they can finally pay for it, that they can't freaking use. And so I think that part is embarrassing. You're going to tell the story, CNBC, tell the whole story. It's very fashionable to say, oh, it's the colleges run by liberals that are spiking up the tuition at the hands of the liberal board of trustees and then petitioning the government to forgive the student loans so they could charge the next crop.
Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, college is not about education. It's about ROI. I don't remember one class I took in college, maybe one, it was called listening, and I failed. So
obviously.
Yeah, obviously. But college is about an ROI. If you go to college and you don't get a return on your investment, what's the point? These days, Tom, you talk about this all the time. It's not about education, it's about indoctrination. But what's the ROI on your degree? Half of all graduates are working in a field or in a job or in a profession that is not what they majored in. What's the freaking point? Again, I went to college. It was worth it for me, but most people it's not. And unless you're in the STEM field, medical, law, there's a lot of times that just not worth it in the end. Dropout rates, how many people start, stop, finish, don't get degrees. Then you have interest rates. When I was in college, 2.5% was the interest rate that I had to pay Sally Mae back. Now it's 8%.
Jeez.
So the numbers just don't add up. And they say that college is 4 times more expensive, but what you learn is exactly the same, maybe even worse. Not worth it.
If you can do an on-the-job training and learn from some, of course, aside from the STEM, but if you can work under somebody and shadow under somebody to learn from them all day long, go do it instead of what they're doing right now. And even Tico the other day said something. He says, Dad, I think when I graduate high school, I don't know if I'm going to go to college right away. I'm going to take 1 year off to work at a job and a couple things I want to do, and then see if I even need to go to college, and I'll consider going back. So it's going to be interesting to see what these guys do later on, Tom.
And a closing point on this, I won't say the name of the company because Pat and I were at it was a private discussion, but a major U.S. Fortune 500, definitely, right, Pat, said that they are looking at what is the performance of the people that come into their company from college, and they stacked ranked the colleges, and they were finding things like the University of South Carolina, an engineer did as well as coming from Ivy League schools, and they even mentioned that they were deprioritizing recruiting from Harvard, and they prioritized recruiting from, and they named a couple state schools. You know the conversation I'm talking about, Pat, right? So you've even got companies that are looking at it right now and saying, wait a minute, 3 years in, What was the performance of this kid from Harvard, and what was the performance of the kid that went to NYU or the University of South Carolina? And they were finding direct correlations that, yes, you have a lot of smart kids that come out of schools, but they're looking at the performance once they start training them in their business, using them in their business, and they're finding, hey, there's another thing. Adam was just talking about ROI. These are companies looking at ROI saying, well, maybe you didn't have to spend $360,000 at Harvard. Maybe, spending $100,000 at a state school, and you could have secured the same job at the same wage. And at the end of the day, the company is like, I got the same out of that guy.
There you go. Makes sense. There's different alternatives nowadays.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.